Hey guys, we're gonna get started with dialogue here, but before we can get too much into the high level details of dialogue, we need to have our basic UI components in place first. So in this video, I'm going to showcase this text box that I made that will have the text crawl in over it. Great. So here in my game screen, I set up my stage so that I can have a UI going on here, and I have a table root and the dialog box here, and I initialize my UI down here in the method. Great. So I set up the UI stage and I get the viewport and I update the viewport to the size that I want. I have a table that is filling the parent. This is right out of the wiki, right? And then I have this dialog box that I create, and I pass the skin, and I can just call animate text on it, and it makes sure to make this text crawl in over the element, and that is all it takes to create this effect. Awesome. Now, how is this implemented? Actually, we should wait a little bit. There's another dialog box. There's another thing I want to show you here. It has an isFinished method so that we can aid our controller later in development here. So if it is finished animating, it will say true, and if it's not, then it says false. Great. So how does this work? Let's jump right into it. The dialog box here is just a table, a simple scene2D UI table with a label on it, a text label here. So when we initialize it, we give it a skin, and I say set background, and I want the dialog box background from the skin. The text label is just initialized with a new line on it and the skin, and I make the assumption that there is a label style in the skin somewhere, and also the dialog box is in the skin somewhere. The new line is because I want the dialog box to always be 2 lines high, and by doing this I can make sure that happens. And the text label is just added. We expand the cell and we align the cell to the left, and we pad 5. Great. Now let's talk animation here. We have some animation fields right here. First of all, we have the state here. It's just a private state machine. No one will ever see it except for dialog box. But so it can only be, or it can either be animating or it can be idle, and we make sure to maintain which state we're in. So when we initialize here, we just want to be idle. Now I have the target text, that is the string we want to display to the user in the end after animation. The animation timer is how long we've been animating so far, and the animation total time is how far or how long we're going to animate totally. The time per character here is how much time we want to wait for each character to appear. So this is pretty low. Okay, great. So when a user calls animate text here, we set the target text to the text that we want to display, and the animation total time we can calculate by taking the amount of characters in the text and multiply it by the amount of wait time we have per character. That gives us the entire animation's length. Great. Then we set the state to animating, and we set the animation timer to 0 because we just started animating. Great. Now this UI stage here, we act on it every single frame, and when we act on it, it will update everything in the scene graph. That includes our dialog box here. So what I did was I overrode the act method of this table, and then made some changes here based on or additions rather, based on the state machine. So if the state is animating, then we want the animation timer to increase with the delta. If the animation timer is over the total time of the animation, then we go back to idle because we're finished animating, and on the way out we set the animation timer to animation total time. Now we can create, or we can calculate what characters to actually display, and we put all these in the actually displayed text. To calculate that, we need first calculate how many characters we want to display, and the way we calculate that is by dividing the animation timer by the animation total time. This will give us a number between 0 and 1, describing how far through the animation we are percent-wise. and then we multiply that by the target text length. This will give us a number between 0 and the target text length here, so that is an amount of characters corresponding to how far through the animation we are. Now for each of these characters that we need to display, we just loop through the target text and add each characters to the actually displayed text. Now lastly, if the actually displayed text is not equal to what is displayed on the label, then we set text here on the label, so we update the label. The set text is a small method I made up here. The only interesting thing about this is that it adds a new line if there's not a new line in it, so we maintain this 2-line height of the table, and then we just update the text label here. I also overrode the get preferred width, so I can make sure the element stays the same width all the time. Great. Finally, the isFinish method here just relies on the state machine. If we're idle, then it's obviously finished, and if not, then it's false. And that is all it takes to create a scrolling dialogue. Now I can show you what happens if we add way more text than is supposed to be inside the dialogue here. You can see it just kind of grows the element until the text fits. Now this may be excellent for some RPGs, and this is a consequence of how we do the scrolling text. This also works with the several lines. If we make another new line here, you can see that happens. Great. The reason this background here is scaling so well is because we set it down here, the dialog box, and we assume that this is a drawable in the skin. Now when I generate the skin, I make sure that the dialog box here is added as a 9 patch, and I do that from the region in the UI atlas called the dialog box, and I just have to specify what regions in it are not scalable. And so when you use a 9 patch for drawing, you get this really nice scaling effect where you can grow and shrink elements without them being distorted. Alright, great. That is everything for the scrolling text. Hopefully soon we can get to implement some cool dialogue. Thank you for watching my video.